There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
This is Grant Netzorg from In the Company of Serpents out of Denver, Colorado, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Grant Netzorg, vocalist and guitarist of In the Company of Serpents. In the Company of Serpents' first release as a trio entitled Lux, featuring Netzorg with Ben Pitts, who has been with Night Wraith, False Cathedrals on bass and lap steel guitar, and J.P. Dameron from Vermin Womb, Bleak Heart, Clinging to the Trees of a Forest Fire. Good God, what a name. That's awesome. On drums. And so, hey man, welcome to the show, and glad to get you on here to talk about In the Company of Serpents, and especially this new release from you guys called Lux. So how's it going?
It's good, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem whatsoever. We kicked this show off with a good thing, talking about Jenna Jameson and all this good stuff. So let's jump right into the interview here. Let's talk about Lux. How has it been working with Earsplit Promotion so far for you guys?
Oh, fantastic. Liz is excellent, and I kind of struggle with that facet of self promotion. It feels a little like, I don't know, like I can struggle with trying to like talk ourselves up sometimes, and like, so it's nice to have her cover that ground for us. But yeah, she's been fantastic. Their Earsplit's great.
What's impressed or excited you the most about making the new 8-track album Lux, if anything? Grant, what's excited the most for you, man?
I mean, it's been a fucking doozy for me, man, frankly. So I kind of wrote this thing with a few sort of key symbolic elements in mind. And, at the outset of a creative project, you kind of think what something might be about, but it's kind of been revealing to me, just with everything that's kind of transpired in our lives, that, there's certain facets of it that like maybe it was about something else entirely that I didn't quite perceive. So like the overarching theme is this notion of like a fundamental root essence behind the manifest like world, like what anything could essentially be boiled down to. And a lot of, various occultists and wizards and philosophers, et cetera, have speculated at what that metaphor might be. But this sort of notion that all is light is kind of chiefly what's at play there in the title Lux. And so on one level, it's got like that sort of, there's a lot of like solar imagery and just light imagery being employed. But then more personally for me, it's also the etymology of my daughter's name. So on the way that I've kind of been putting it is that on one hand, the record kind of functions as a form of esoteric prayer, and on the other, it's a message of love to my daughter.
That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, but what I was saying there in terms of like the you were asking like what's the thing that stands out to you is that I've got all these like light and life sort of themes going on in this thing, but at the same time we had a death in the family that pretty much coincided right with the completion of this record, almost down to the hour. And with any sunrise, you always got a sunset. So like that's kind of what I was alluding to, in that there's certain songs where like I'm talking about all of these like life and rebirth and like the beginnings of cycles, but there's like certainly an undercurrent of the ends of cycles that's at play there as well, that I didn't really glean until the sucker was already done, you know? So, in a weird way, it's kind of like the meaning has revealed itself to me more and more as we go on with it, even though, you know, like I might have set out with something else entirely in mind. You know what I mean?
The album was recorded August 5th through the 13th at Flatline Audio in Denver, Colorado. Let's talk about a little bit. How was the writing process on this? And this kind of took pretty quickly to develop.
Yeah. I mean, so I basically, as soon as we get one creative project out, like I start working on the next one, or try to anyway. So like the oldest song, like in terms of like which ones like were written first, is the opener, The Fool's Journey. And that's one that I began working on with our former drummer, Joe Meyer, like basically as soon as our last record came out. But the vast majority of the rest of the record was then written with Ben and JP on board. And, you know, they're both like just absolutely killer musicians, like who I would say their talent level kind of eclipses my own. And so, you know, like when you play with people who, you know, are just that good, it kind of like galvanizes you and drives you to kind of up your game a little bit, you know? So the writing process was generally just very positive and just kind of like seeing what would stick, playing with these dudes.
Any tracks standing out more to you than any right now on the album? I know it must change every time you listen to it, and I know these are your babies, but do you have any that stand out for you personally, maybe?
Yeah, I think I guess like in this current moment, the two that really jump out to me are The Chasm at the Mouth of the All and Scales of Mott, the latter of which is we were blessed to have the presence of a couple of our buddies do a vocal performance on there. We got Ethan McCarthy from Primitive Man and Vermin Womb, and Ben Hutcherson from Chemist and Glacial Tomb doing kind of a dual bad cop vocal on the end of it. But then, yeah, the Chasm at the Mouth of the All is also, I think, for us, it's I don't know. It seems like a departure from kind of like what we had been doing previously, and it was fun to explore in the writing process and just kind of, you know, see what we could do with it.
Now, speaking of Ethan and plus Ben, you also had a special appearance from Paul Primus. Is that correct? He was also on this? That's
correct. Yeah, he's a member of the Colorado Symphony, and on this record, he's playing viola d'amore, which I was unfamiliar with before making friends with Paul, but it's a really cool instrument that's typically tuned to this DAD FAD tuning, which for guitar players, that's like this Skip James minor open tuning that just has this really eerie, sort of haunting, somber quality. And, you know, lo and behold, I don't know, I'm not a huge classical music buff. I didn't realize that there's like this instrument that's basically expressly designed to play with those somber, sort of morose tones. And it's got like under the fretboard, there's like a second set of strings that you can't pluck or fret or, you know, do anything with, but that just drone in sympathy with whatever's being played. So it really just has this awesomely haunting quality to it. And we were lucky to have Paul perform on a couple of tracks.
Was it hard to choose between the current set of songs? Which one would be the first single you wanted to release for this album?
You know, yeah, that's always a consideration. And like, you know, frankly, on the other end, there's like, I would like people to hear the whole thing kind of as a cohesive whole, but you know, that you gotta tease out some tracks here and there. But you know, it seemed natural that The Fool's Journey was the first thing that we wrote. And, you know, by the time we debuted that thing, you know, shit was kind of starting to hit the fan as far as this whole pandemic situation is concerned. And so the background for that tune is, the basic conceit of it is that a tarot reading was done for the fate of humanity should we continue our current trajectory unabated. and it spelled out bad news. And then a follow-up question is posed, well, then what can we do about it? And that reading fundamentally points to our own ability to self-empower and our agency and our propensity to, I guess, just achieve higher things. And so while on the one hand, it's like this very doom and gloom, like, hey, we're fucked unless we like do something about it sort of message, there's still with high emphasis placed on the second half of that saying, unless we do something about it, which we have the ability to do. And when I initially wrote that, I had been thinking that, like, maybe that was about like, the industrial war machine running awry and going unchecked, or global warming threatening the stability of the planet, all these other sort of apocalyptic things. And then lo and behold, kind of in a similar way where I was kind of talking previously, where sometimes you write something and you don't know what it's about until way after the fact, that all this pandemic shit starts going down. We're like, oh, maybe that's what it's about, instead of, warmongering or whatever else I had initially thought.
It's a very, very scary time, regardless of how it's going to end right now. I mean, it's we all may have this and just don't know about it. Every single one of us, even if we're in our houses being quarantined. It's a very scary time right now. Yeah,
it's really surreal, man. It's unlike anything, I've ever experienced. And like the thing that I've been kind of chuckling about is, like, for somebody who's had a pretty steady diet of apocalyptic media for, most of my life, whether you're talking like George Romero zombie flicks or, Escape from New York, John Carpenter shit, all these different, like, or Road Warrior, any sort of apocalyptic scenario. I've been like I've had a steady diet of media that, uses that as a centerpiece. You'd think I'd be more prepared for this, but goddamn, if this didn't blindside me.
Yeah, it makes your jaw drop. You're like, huh? What?
Yeah, it's truly surreal, man.
Yeah, it's like now you're in survival mode, and it's scary. I mean, me and my colleagues at work and a lot of my friends, and I'm assuming you as well, and everybody out there, we're suffering. Money wise, I mean, I know money's not the whole thing, but when you're considered an essential worker like myself, which that's what they call us, but I'm a utility worker is what they claim us to be. Very, I keep going back. It's scary, but it's like, well, we're out here helping, then help us,
Yeah.
Supposedly I've been reading that we're supposed to be getting a huge stimulus check that's going to be for a couple of months or maybe up to 6 months to a year. I've seen that. And I've seen that the Federal Reserve is quite upset because they're saying, hey, these folks need money now. They need help. If we give them money, they're going to put it right back into the economy. And that's the truth. That's how you build it back up. And
it's wild, man. Like some of the shit, like it's interesting how it's kind of forcing the hand of some broader social questions, like something that seemed outlandish, if you're to talk about it a year ago, like universal basic income, is now just like a plain as day reality. Like, yeah, like, come on, like, people need it. Like, it's something else, man.
I love exactly what our governor said here in Kentucky. People can bash him all they want to, but he's trying to save folks' lives. And I love exactly what he said. He said a person doesn't need 2 to 3 jobs to make income and support your family. You should have one job that takes care of everything. And he's saying that jobs need to step up and pay what they need to pay besides sticking it in their pockets and building these big mansions.
Are you a crust punk fan? There's of course the adage, do they owe us a living? Of course they fucking do.
So writing these new songs, does it challenge or push you guys still to come up with something new and stay fresh within the company of Serpents music these days? Does it still give you that push to do it? Yeah,
man. I'm kind of a pretty harsh self-critic, and when we write new shit, if I don't feel like it's in some way surpassed what we've done previously, then on some level it might not have really like met my expectations or succeeded in the way that I would like. So I try to push ourselves on everything new that we do. And, I think this particular record has been definitely a point of growth for us. Like, it's different than I mean, it's got some thematic similarities to our previous record in that there's, I'm employing a fair amount of like Kabbalistic symbolism and, esoteric references, just, the shit that occupies my bookshelf. So it's not like a complete departure from what we've done in the past, but like, I do try and push ourselves and try and come up with something new. I don't want to write the same record 50 times in a row, much as I love the Ramones and AC/DC, I want there to be some growth and just kind of a shift in trajectory, or at least, progress of some kind. And I think this record, from a writing perspective, is definitely a step forward for us.
Now, this album was produced, mixed, and mastered by Dave Otero, and additional engineering by Charlie Abend. How was working with Dave Otero on this? Did he get something out of you guys that maybe another producer might not have gotten?
I'm sure he did. He's got a excellent ear, and in particular, he has an ear for melody. And when we went into the studio, pretty much everything was all buttoned up and written, and we kind of, more or less knew what we were going to do. But then, he'd have certain suggestions where I might either tone down or play up certain like vocal harmony type things and things like that I think for the end result is better served for his suggestions. But yeah, he's great. We've recorded basically the last 3-4 things that we've done with him dating back to like 2014. The first thing we did with him was our Merging in Light EP. And then we also did a track that was kind of co-produced by him and True Brewing Company here in Denver, one of several of Denver's very fine metal-centric breweries. But he did that, and then of course our last one, Ainsof R, and then Lux now. So yeah, we've had a kind of a long-standing working relationship with him, and it's good. He's a good dude to work with, and I'd be lying if I said it was a gentle process the whole way through, because I kind of alluded to the fact that I can be a pretty harsh self-critic, and I don't necessarily always let myself enjoy the recording process because I'm getting in my own way in that regard to some respect. But when the dust settles, I'm always very pleased with what we come away with when working with Dave.
Now, Christina Hunt did the artwork for this album. Let's talk about that, man. She did an unbelievable job on this, I think.
Oh, totally. Yeah, she is an exceptional talent. I've actually got the original artwork sitting here in my office right in front of me right now, and just like the level of detail, like when you just look close at this sucker, is just staggering. She's an incredible talent. But basically, I came to her and I told her the broader theme of, that fundamental root essence, prima materia, all is light sort of vibe, and said, I want you to do your riff on the Sun Arcana from Tarot. And my only stipulation was that, basically give me a solar motif riffing on Tarot, because she reads Tarot as well. So she's conversant in that symbolic language, if you will. And I just said, it's got to include our cross insignia. And other than that, like solar motifs, run with it. And she comes back with this incredible image that includes this wheel of like eyes overlooking our cross. That's a direct nod to the Ophanum or Merkaba imagery from biblical and Kabbalistic lore. It's the vision of Ezekiel whole thing. And she didn't even she didn't realize, I don't think, that we had just done a record like that was basically all Kabbalistic symbolism in Safar. And so here she's proposing basically using like a stylized Merkaba on the cover of our record. And I'm like, oh, it's funny you should mention that. And I sent her a picture of our last record, which also has a stylized Merkaba on it. So it definitely, the synchronicities were definitely aligning, and it was fantastic to work with her. She's an incredible talent. We'd done like one other design with her, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, like where she helped us design some merch. And I've always wanted to come back and work with her some more, because she's just got an incredible eye for detail. And I think it's turned out splendidly. I'm really, really happy with her work on this one.
Okay, Grant, do you see this band still musically growing, and are you happy with the sound that it is right now and the direction that it's going to?
Yeah, I like this current trajectory. A lot of people have observed that there's kind of like spooky spaghetti Western vibe going on, and like, I'm like, yeah, that's apt, like that's certainly part of my, my sonic landscape. I grew up watching Sergio Leone flicks and listening to Ennio Morricone soundtracks. So it's apt. And, I just like continuing to explore that sort of like haunted West, aesthetic. And, I'm always looking to expand what we're doing and see where we can grow from here. It might not be the same thing on whatever we write next. In fact, I've already been working on what will probably comprise our next record, just when I'm not quarantine bugged out. But yeah, like I'm happy with it. And, I'm one of those guitar players that can definitely over obsess on like all the gear that makes up your signal chain. But, I've kind of finally landed on a configuration that I don't think I'll need to change for some time. It's cured my, as they call it, gear acquisition syndrome, or GAS.
Okay, man, you got me on the spaghetti westerns, because I'm a huge fan of spaghetti westerns. What's your favorite one?
Nice. Oh man. Well, so like that's another one that's like right now. It depends on what I've just watched most recently, but my wife and I have been doing like little themed movie nights, date nights, like in quarantine here. And we revisited the whole Man with No Name trilogy of Clint Eastwood and Sergio Leone's collaboration with, of course, the amazing Lee Van Cleef. And,
yes.
Yeah, like, like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is just like staggeringly great, man. Like, it's God. Like, I know it's like, it's a huge one that everybody's always going to point to when you talk spaghetti westerns or whatever, but like, damn, if it hasn't earned that reputation. It's so good. That scene when Tuco goes into the gun shop and like just assembles like the perfect revolver from like pieces of like 8 other weapons.
Yeah.
And then proceeds to take the shopkeeper's whiskey and drink it in front of him. Like, what a scene, man.
Yeah, and like for especially, you got me there. I mean, Clint Eastwood and John Wayne are my favorite ones. I'm sorry, I used to not like westerns, but for like the last couple of years, man, I have really dove into them. And like For a Few Dollars More is a good one for me. I love.
Oh yeah, I think that's everybody talks about Fistful of Dollars and how great it is and how it's a wonderful nod to Yohimbo and all that. But like, yeah, For a Few Dollars More, man, what a killer flick that one is.
And Pale Rider is badass.
Oh yeah, it's actually we got some of our friends have a band in town called Pale Horse Pale Rider.
Oh, nice.
That obviously is a nod to that. But if you like that sort of like haunted, like frozen desert sort of oral landscape.
Yes.
You might check them out. They might be right up your alley.
Yeah, for folks, if you haven't seen this movie, I don't care. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to give you a little bit of intro to it. It's about a marshal who gets whipped, and they whip him with a whip, and they kill him. But then the marshal comes back from the dead to get revenge on these guys, and it's
to exact his vengeance.
That's exactly right. And I mean, it's pretty awesome. I mean,
paints the town red.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, God, man, these spaghetti westerns are awesome. And Van Cleef, is that his name? Look, Van Cleef.
Oh yeah, Lee Van Cleef.
Yes.
Yeah, he's fantastic, man.
He portrayed the best villain that you could absolutely get in that time frame.
Tough as nails, man. And like, you know, here's a funny stray observation that I was having this conversation with my wife when we watched Escape from New York the other night, because Lee Van Cleef has a pretty great part in that film too. But like, with all the Italian style of filmmaking at that time in the 70s was that they, you know, had a huge studio where they'd employ actors from all over the world, and everybody would just read their parts in their native tongue, and then they'd just dub it all over after the fact, right? And like, so Lee Van Cleef's lines always, you know, like they were very clearly dubbed in all those movies, and they're like, by the time it was cool watching Escape from New York, I'm like, oh no, that is his voice. Like that is what he sounds like. That like dude's got a like gruff, like sandpaper, like no bullshit voice, man. Like, but like it always just seemed like slightly out of dub, you know, like in all the Italian westerns, you know, that I could never be sure if it was actually his voice, you know. But then like, you know, you come back to a movie like Escape from New York and you're like, oh, of course. Yeah, that's totally that dude.
I love
it.
Like,
that's just who he is.
I love it in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He walks up to this Civil War soldier and he has no legs.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking on just his knees. That's it, his nubs and everything. And he goes, angel eyes. I see angel eyes over there. That's what they called him, was angel eyes, and that's Van Cleef.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a bad mofo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's the avenging angel of death, if any kind of angel. Mm-hmm. Like, the dude, like, he plays like a sinister dude in that movie.
Yeah, he did. I want to go back on this just a little bit, because I know I forgot, but are there any tracks that did not make this album that we could see down the line on an EP or a possible full-length, maybe?
You know, there's bits and pieces of riffs that, like, I'm sure will wind up in other things. There's one particular riff that is kind of a like you could call the tune on our new record, Scales of Mott, kind of a I guess forefather of whatever this tune is that I'm going to end up writing with it. But yeah, there's another riff that's basically, so I mentioned that DAD FAD Skip James tuning that a lot of the record is written in. Scales of Mott is one of the two songs I've written where I've transposed that tuning down to a root of G, which is like, you know, pretty much the bottom end of the register for what a guitar can make noises of and still sound somewhat decent. But yeah, there's another riff that I've been kind of toying with there that I want to play with. Another one that I've been kind of messing around with is kind of a playing with the notion of the disarray motif, which is it's a particular kind of musical phrase that a lot of people have written into their music, but most famously, probably to metalhead folks like ourselves, would be noted for its appearance in the beginning of The Shining's opening score. Anyways, I'll spare you my like shitty humming. Although I already just subjected you to it. But yeah, like I've been playing with a riff that kind of uses that as a springboard too, that I think might be a spiritual cousin to this record.
What do you hope everyone takes away, or a message you hope they hear while listening to any of In the Company of Serpents music in general? What do you hope they get from it, man? That we are all sovereign and that we all have agency and we can all do better, you know, strive for higher, because there's more that we can do. And yeah, I don't know if I'm putting that elegantly, but like, yeah, like we all can pursue that light, you know. There's I've been playing with all these like sort of solar motifs and different light aesthetics on these past 3 records. Shit, like there's been a variation of some kind of light in the title of the last 3 things we've released. But a refrain that I think is especially medicinal in these trying times comes from Leonard Cohen's very, very killer tune, Anthem, off of his record, The Future. But it's just that notion
there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
What can fans expect at a show from In the Company of Serpents once everything gets back to normal and we can get out and take some shows in once all this gets back?
You know, it's I think the face of live performance is going to be fundamentally reshaped by this crisis, and I'm definitely kind of, you know, missing that facet of my life. And I've kind of been reflecting on that over this past weekend, because our record release show was supposed to be this last Saturday. But for me, playing heavy music has a deeply cathartic element to it. And I like to try and create that sort of catharsis. And if that's something that I can convey effectively to somebody that's watching us perform, then, you know, my job here is done. I just truly, miss and relish that catharsis that comes from playing heavy music.
What made you want to become a musician? What was that spark for you, Grant, that said, yeah, that's what I want to do, or even try to attempt?
Oh, so that's, you know, you're talking like going back to like childhood. And, so I have a big sister who's 11 years and 1 day older than me. And, she was always just the coolest in my eye. And, while she was away at boarding school when I was a little tyke, I remember raiding her closet and finding her stash of cassette tapes, and in particular pulling out like AC/DC's If You Want Blood and Back in Black. And I think she had like Nirvana and some other stuff, you know, like basically wanting like seeing my big sis and thinking she was the coolest. And then I was like, oh, well, she's cool. She listens to this music. Like, maybe this music's cool. I should check it out. You know, I'm like 6, 7 years old. And, I kind of discovered AC/DC then. And like, from there, you know, found Sabbath pretty soon after. And also got kind of, started to go down the old school punk road at the time too, by, you know, getting into bands like The Clash and the Ramones and Iggy and the Stooges, of course. But I got interested in music very early on, and basically have wanted to play it since I was a little kid. But yeah, I'd say that genesis point was probably raiding my sister's record collection when she was away at boarding school.
To me, those are classics that you can't get in. Well, I'm not going to say you can't get any better, but that's one good way to start out with. That is for sure. Especially when you find AC/DC like that, man. That's insane.
Oh man, like the Bon Scott era shit, man. So great. Yeah, like it's like, you know, like it's dead simple, but it ain't trying to be anything it ain't, you know?
Right.
Like it's just fucking good.
And it's raw. I mean, it feels like it's raw when you listen to it on a cassette tape. I mean, it's just raw. That's the way it sounds. It sounds like, I don't know. It sounds more fuller, if that makes any sense. The music sounds more fuller.
Yeah, totally. Those analog formats, man. Like that when you got something that's just so riff driven and primal like that, like, you know, it kind of lends itself to those mediums. Speaking of raw Australian bands, though, the flip side of that coin, you ever get into Nick Cave's first band, The Birthday Party?
No, I have not.
Ooh.
No,
Talk about raw, like primal shit. Very different trajectory than AC/DC. But if you want a fun one, while we're discussing various quarantine rabbit holes we might all go down, go check out the Mutiny in Heaven EP.
Since almost everyone is in quarantine from the coronavirus and everybody's getting out just a little bit more now, do you think concerts and festivals will have the same impact as before with sales and attendance, or do you think that this is truly hurt and there's going to be a different way of concert attendance now?
You know, it's really been fucking wild to observe all this, because, you know, I've got a lot of friends that, you know, basically seeing their businesses shut down. Like, we lost one of Denver's best, like, local dives that, you know, would give shows to all manner of great heavy underground bands. There's a place called Three Kings that just announced on Friday that they're shutting their doors. You know, they're not surviving the COVID thing. And like, my Facebook feed has been nothing but like musician buddies lamenting that loss for, you know, the last 72 hours. But I don't know how it's going to reshape shit. And I'm cognizant of the fact that people will obviously be a bit gun shy about getting into a packed room with a bunch of strangers, like in a pandemic scenario, and we certainly don't want to act as some sort of like cultural typhoid Mary by hosting shit in this time, but I think it's going to force some innovation, man. Like in lean times, you might take some knowledge from buzzard logic, like there's it's a wild fucking situation, but it's going to force us to innovate. So we got to find that little morsel of sustenance in an otherwise unfriendly world.
I see live streaming picking up more than ever now from here on out. That's just me personally.
Yeah, there's that, and then I don't know if you saw it. There was somebody hosted like a music festival someplace in Europe where it was like a drive-in music festival where everybody just came in their cars, and nobody got out of their car, and but there's still like a band up on stage performing. There's it's going to force some innovations, and I try to be optimistic. I'm definitely grieving. Not being able to fucking get out and play music, because it's never more evident to me than now that it was a form of deep therapy for me and kind of a huge outlet that I cherish. And so I definitely look forward to getting back to playing live music, but just what that might look like is anybody's guess, it's a wild time, man.
I seen where, and I actually watched it. I'm still a NASCAR fan. I like to watch it, but they raced without no fans at Darlington, and it was
God, that's surreal, isn't it?
So weird. Yeah, Kevin Harvick won. He pulled out, and he got out of the car, and the guy's 6 feet away, and all you see is a microphone, and that's it. And then you look up into the
somebody holding the longest boom mic you have ever seen.
Yeah,
socially distant.
Here's what the kicker was, man. It's he's in winner circle, right? He's over there in winner circle. Nobody's in there with him. I mean, they are, but they're way back from him. It's so weird
for him, that's a big moment. That's a big moment for anybody who's achieved that level of success, and then it's just just be a fucking ghost town,
Yeah, really. It's get out of the car, go. Yeah. Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, get back in the car and go.
Cool. See you later.
It like you said, it's
cool.
It's like you said earlier, man. It's a surreal thing, and not seeing the fans and stuff. I know things must go on, but you never know how much you miss fans and how much you miss the interaction with people, even if it was bad or good.
Yeah.
I mean, you still miss it.
Yeah, man. The joke that I keep making is that before quarantine hit, I was already a pretty curmudgeonly hermit. But flip side of that same coin is like most of my socialization was going out to shows and interacting with like my peers in the Denver music community. Like that's most of my socialization. And I ain't got that right now. It's definitely a strange time, man. I truly do miss just being able to go out and, see buddies that have made through playing music and, mutually soak in a set from, a killer band and, just relish everything that comes along with live performance, man. I know I have countless friends whose tours have been canceled, and another buddy who's almost got basically this quarantine shit hit while his band Insect Arc was on tour in Europe, and almost got stuck at an airport for a month.
Wow, dude,
it's surreal, dude. Yeah, that's another. Well, we were talking about Dave Otero earlier, but that's the buddy I'm referring to here is Andy Patterson, who's a excellent and gifted producer himself that runs a studio in Salt Lake City called Boar's Nest. But he damn near got trapped in fucking Europe, like when they shut everything down, you know?
Yeah, and these bands are going to be lucky if they can even keep their crew when they go back out on tour, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be a wild time to see what's going to happen, because now we're going to be living in like post COVID-19 now. So yeah,
that's right, man. Like it's fucking weird, man. With like in our current world, live performance and the merch sales that would come from that would basically be the bread and butter of most underground bands, you know. And you know, I'm sitting here looking at a closet in my office here that's just stacked out with T-shirts that I bought for a tour that probably ain't gonna happen this fall, you know. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Is there a country that stands out or shocks you that in the company of Serpents music gets support from, Grant? Is there anything that kind of blew your mind so far?
You know, it's been really cool. Like, so we're fully DIY, you know, like if you order a record from us, I'm the dude who's sitting at home packaging it up and sending it to you. And so like that stuff does stick out to me. And like it's been wild when, like, you know, somebody's ordering your record from someplace like Indonesia or something, you know, like how the hell have you heard of our little ass, you know, like it's cool. And I think like it's been, you know, really, really cool to you know, just make music and try and get it out there and see where it turns up, you know, like in the last places you'd expect sometimes, and that can be really rewarding.
Now, I know when you were younger, you had to have a lot of music, and you had to have a lot of albums, of course, probably. But did you have that go-to? Did you have that go-to album or song when you were younger that just allowed you to escape, man, or just made you feel like everything was going to be okay, everything was going to be fine? Did you possibly have that? If so, what was it, and what album was it, maybe?
Oh, oh man, like I could give you like 50 different answers right here. The first thing that came to my mind, and I can't get away from this shit, it's Rock and Roll Suicide by David Bowie. Closing track on Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Another one that is actually referenced by that song in its closing thunderous piano chord, like outro, be the Beatles' A Day in the Life. Yeah, like I remember, so I used to be terrified of flying, and I still had to fly all the time for work in a previous career. And I remember like I would always get like extra spooked by the landing process. And my line of logic was I would put on the Beatles' A Day in the Life or Rock and Roll Suicide, so that if the fucker went down with the plane, if that plane went down, I'd at least have had my last night of listening to a really, really cool song.
I can't even think of that. I mean, I can't do it. There's no way. It trips me out. No way.
Yeah.
And I'm on the ground and thinking about it. No way. No way, dude. No.
Oh, man, I eventually got over it. You know, I learned how to fly with a bit more grace than that. But, yeah.
Folks, you want to get out and pick up In the Company of Serpents' new album, Lux. That's out right now. You want to get out and pick this album up and support these guys. It's a great, great album. Grant, how could folks stay in touch with you, buy some merchandise, tour dates, all this good stuff? When we're able to get back to some normalcy and you guys are getting back out there to start playing, how can they do that, good sir?
So, you know, follow us on social media. It's just In the Company of Serpents for Facebook, or at ITCOS Doom on Instagram and Twitter. But, yeah, you know, our main web store is just our Bandcamp. So In the Company of Serpents Doom.bandcamp.com. And that's the most direct way of supporting us. Although we'll take any support you want to send our way. If you prefer to go through like Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, you know, like so be it. But that's the most direct way to help us out.
And before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for the show?
Yeah, of course. This is Grant Netzorg from In the Company of Serpents out of Denver, Colorado, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Hour podcast. Please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast links, also a YouTube link, and every link that we are associated with. And trust me, we are all over just about every platform. You want to get out and check us out and support us. Also, go out and pick up In the Company of Serpents' new album entitled Lux. Get out and support these guys. You will not be disappointed. Grant, I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck from here on out, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This has been a fun conversation, John. I appreciate it.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.